everyone, and welcome to Hort Talk. Thank you for listening. This is episode 4, and today we are going to be talking about sustainability. I've got 3 very special guests with me here today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Merlin Brooklettle. I'm a director at Nicholson Nurseries. We're based in Oxfordshire. We're a family-run business, so our roots were in growing native trees and hedging and the forestry sector. And since 1979, when we started, we've grown to encompass what our byline is plants, forestry and landscaping. So I'm responsible for the plants side of things. And then we run a full contracting service on forestry and also landscaping. So from design, build, maintenance, etc. So we reach quite a lot of different sectors. One of my roles, apart from the plant side of it, is on sustainability, and I chair what we call our tea committee, which is probably sounds actually no, it is more interesting. It is interesting. We don't just drink tea. Technical, environmental, and ecological committee, we call it. So we pull together various people from different parts of the company, and we've got lots of different departments. But when I first started 20 years ago, we'd just won Oxfordshire Small Business, and a couple of years ago we won Oxfordshire Large Business, so we're quite big now. So we pull people from different departments to talk about the environment, the ecology, any technical advances, etc. So sitting on that committee, I hope, gives me a bit of a view to inform the discussion we're about to have.
Thank you.
Merlin, I hope you do get to drink tea as well.
Usually lots of coffee, but yeah, all works the same.
That's brilliant. I love that. So my name is Amelie Trolle, Swedish origin, but I've been in Cornwall for a long time, working at the Eden Project, educational charity and visitor destination, beautiful global garden. I worked there as a sustainability manager for many years, and also did a lot of work on our educational programs for small, medium-sized and large corporate businesses to support them on their sustainability journey. And then since early this year, I'm heading up the engagement team at Planet Mark. We're a certification body, and we support our members with their sustainability journey. And I think my team, we've got the best job in the business. We get to actually engage with all of our members and the incredible people behind all of our members, their teams, to really support them in terms of embedding sustainability right throughout the business, making it a core part of the culture. And I've been pleased to support George's team in their work starting this year. So yeah,
definitely.
Thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, I'm George Hillier. I'm Director of Property at Hillier Nurseries. We are a business that was founded in 1864. And I'm part of the 5th generation of the family. We have retail garden centres, and we have 18 of those. But we're also growers, and we grow both plants and shrubs for the garden centres retail. But we also are one of the UK's biggest growers of mature and semi-mature trees. In fact, we produce about 40,000 trees per annum. So exciting stuff. In my role as Director of Property, one of my responsibilities is our environment and our environmental responsibility. And I'm really proud to head up that side of the business. And as Amelie alluded to, we are members of the Planet Mark, which is an organisation that has helped us establish ourselves and establish our environmental policy.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all very much for joining me today. So I'm going to start with a question. I like to start with a big question. So feel free to answer it from your own perspective. But when we talk about sustainability, what are we talking about? What is sustainability? I mean, who's going to be brave enough to jump straight in?
Well, I can have a first go. So for me, today I'm actually dialing in from my roots back in Sweden, where I grew up. And
Oh, fantastic.
And to me, actually, you know, I look out and I see beautiful oak trees, and I see you know, nature. And for me personally, sustainability has been about stewardship since very early years. It's about preserving and leaving for future generations something that you're proud about. And I think for me personally, I think I want to add to stewardship is just not enough. To me, also, it's about regeneration and feeling that you contribute more to what was there initially. Sustainability is for me a lot about innovation and showing that actually when we collaborate and we work together, and we can actually, you know, leave the place in a way better condition that we first found it. And I think I've been marked as well by my years at the Eden Project, which is in itself an example of restoration, regenerative regeneration. So turning an empty, you know, dead China clay pit into a beautiful global garden, bursting with life and biodiversity, and having the people side of things as well, being part of that bigger picture is incredibly important to me. So yeah, a little bit of everything there, but in summary, more than just, you know, the ability to sustain. There's more that needs to go into that.
I think I would probably agree. I would have, saying that actually being able to give back at every opportunity, I think is a key part of it. You know, as a business, you sort of feel that you take and you take and you take, and yes, you're sustaining your staff and what you're doing. But I think it's possibly a karma thing that the more you give back, the more will come to you as well. So and whether that's, you know, through training your staff, or through your charitable work, or through, you know, thinking about the environment you're in and what you're doing and how that can benefit it more than just being a commercial transaction, I think is really important, that you have to sort of see the bigger picture around you rather than just your narrow focus.
No, that's a really good point, Merlin. And actually, working in the industry that we do, we are fortunate enough that you know, we hope encouraging people and inspiring people to enjoy their green living spaces, and making green living spaces a part of their everyday life. And we've seen that more and more through this pandemic, with people working from home and having offices at home and in the garden and things. Sustainability for me is about, I mean, since the Industrial Revolution, what the human race has achieved has been truly remarkable and an incredible thing. Environmental responsibility is something that is still developing. And for me, environmental responsibility is about, ultimately, it's about carbon neutrality. Being an organization that one way or another looks at everything that it does and goes into great depth and examines that and looks at ways that it can achieve the same goals or better goals, but whilst maintaining a minimal amount of carbon emission. And I think sustainability, for me, begins with carbon footprint measurement.
And can you tell me now a little bit how your journey into sustainability might have begun? Was it through your business or through something in your personal life? What was it that was the kickstart for you?
I'm unmuted, so I'll talk. Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. And it's so hard to actually put your finger on any particular point in time. I think for us, probably it was early doors, looking at peat and our use of peat, and the conversations around that were happening in the sort of 2006, 7, 8, 9. There was quite a lot of talk then, and there were various sort of government suggestions as opposed to forcing anybody actually to do anything. There were lots of sort of, well, wouldn't it be nice ifs, and we thought, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if so. That I think it was a point in time for us that we've worked towards, and now I can proudly say, and I think George can as well, that you guys are also peat free, I think, and have been for some time. So, and we've only just recently, through trialing. So, I think, in that sort of early 2000s period, I think we just sort of became aware more of the fact that we were growing and consuming and possibly that there was a commercial edge to it too, so recycling our water, it was definitely had a commercial edge because water's expensive. I got my water bill this morning and I looked at how much a cubic meter of water is, and it's £1.38, I think, and we were pouring that on, we were just turning the mains on every time. So now, we're lucky enough to have built a reservoir and can recycle it, etc. So lots of things have happened, and I think what's happening now in the environment and the whole zeitgeist that we're in, things have just gone, taking off around sustainability and tree planting, etc., is becoming really, really important. But I think we also have to remind ourselves as businesses, because George sort of mentioned it, we grow trees and we encourage people to grow trees. Mm-hmm. But I always kind of have to say, but somebody else is actually buying those trees. We're just supplying them. We're putting them sometimes in a Land Rover and a trailer and driving them 50 miles to plant them. And the bit we're concerned about is not the trees, although we obviously make sure they're lovely quality trees, but is actually that Land Rover journey. How can we change that? What can we do there? So I think we do have to remind ourselves that, it's not all sort of, it can be quite rose tinted when you say, I grow trees. Whereas actually the reality is, and I always say this to people when they want a career in horticulture, I say it's a factory without a roof, and
it's a good way of putting it.
You need to consider everything that you put into that factory. So anyway, it's an ongoing journey, but it's a very organic one. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think at Hillier, the environment has never been higher on the agenda than it is today, and I'm really pleased to see that that's represented at every level in our business, right from the trustees to the board of directors, and then right throughout our entire business. And I think that that growing sense of awareness. I mean, I was talking about this earlier. It can sometimes feel quite daunting. It can feel really kind of a bit doomsday and a bit kind of like, well, crikey, we are in the situation that we now find ourselves in. And if we don't take action, then the consequences could be and will be really significant. So I'm really pleased that at every level of our business, we have this engagement and input from our staff and also from our customers. There's no doubt that our customers nowadays are so much more aware of not only what the responsibilities are, but also what organisations are actually doing about it. And they will vote with their feet and with their shopping basket.
Absolutely.
And I think that organisations that don't realise that at this point are going to be left behind. And that's not the sole motivation behind why people are getting behind their environmental responsibilities, because I have responsibilities as a homeowner and as an individual, but also as the director of a business, and we take that really seriously, and we are doing everything that we can in a commercial environment. And Merlin, you're absolutely right. It has to be commercially viable, because if it's not, you're not going to be around very long. But to do what we can to reduce carbon emissions.
For me, I think, yeah, it was very like early years, strong connection to the environment that set me on a path. And I think that's something that's so incredibly important when we think about schools, education, making sure that children have that opportunity to connect with nature, because it fosters something really important within us. And then I made it my kind of profession to drive sustainability wherever I went. And I worked, so I've, for me, it's been that I've studied it. I've then gone out and kind of try. I've always been intrigued by businesses' ability to actually turn things around really quickly and be really determined. So in the early days of sustainability and CSR and all of this, so say about 15, 20 years ago, businesses generally got a lot of stick for being, the source of the problem. In many cases, rightly so. But the thing was that there wasn't much talk about businesses as being part of the solution. And that was always a space that I felt that was just not made, it wasn't capitalized on as much as it should, because it turns out that businesses are incredibly, they can really make change quickly if they set their minds to it, if they commit to targets, if they really decide this is their vision and the direction they want to go on. Then and that's what I love that space, and I love how I've been able to witness so many examples of where this is happening, in across different sectors. When things around us sometimes feel like they're moving too slowly, government legislation isn't coming in quickly enough, but then businesses have a real opportunity and a real power to set the direction and show the way, and lead the way to a more low carbon future, more sustainable future. So yeah, I love that. I love that space.
So tell me a little bit about that journey. What do you think so far has had the biggest impact on you?
I think once you start, you make a commitment, and at that point, I think you can't then, with a clear conscience, either as a group of people around a table or as a group of directors, then change that. You can make changes really quickly, and you can do things quickly, and you can commit to things, and you can find the money. You can reinvest it. Occasionally there are grants out there as well. There are incentives there. As soon as you start down that road, I think you have made a commitment, to yourself and to the environment, and to be sustainable. And I think then you then question every move you make. And I think anybody would do that, but you don't necessarily go for the cheapest alternative. And sometimes you'll go, that's not right for us yet. We don't have the alternative. We're looking for it. Like some of the alternatives around concrete, that's one that's quite hard for us when you're building gardens. It's something that we put a lot of research into, and we pay consultants for it. And we've yet to make that completely work for us, but we've got a lot of things happening around that, for, again, alternatives that we can use and present to our customers. So yeah, it keeps happening, it doesn't stop.
And is there something that you've implemented that you're particularly proud of, or that you've really enjoyed working on?
Can I have one actual and one potential?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You can.
Thanks. Very kind.
I'm feeling generous.
I think for me, peat-free, in retrospect, I kind of go, why didn't we do that sooner? But we did it, and I was quite proud of that. The fact that all of our plants now are peat-free. The one for the future, I think, is what we're doing with our forestry guys. We have Forest Canopy Foundation is something we've started, and that really kind of reflects what Amelie was saying about working together. So we're working with other forestry companies, our direct competitors, and we're putting together landowners and business money. So people who've got blunt money and people who've got land, and we're then working towards then that being a carbon offset, but we're driving it. And so we're pulling together the forestry companies and making sure that when all of that happens, that we can divide that up fairly and squarely and make that happen. So there'll be, I think, a lot of business there. There'll be a lot of carbon offset there. And I think that's really exciting for the future.
Fantastic.
It's not about competition. It's really about these collaborations. That's the best way of in achieving, a greater level of sustainability.
So it needs everyone to input together and come together. Otherwise, we can't achieve a common goal.
And also, I think on that note about the common goal, I think that's one area where maybe we haven't done enough sometimes to paint that picture, that the narrative of what that future is that we will strive for. Maybe becoming clearer now, but I think it's for a company to be able to dare to make explicit what their vision is, how they see themselves as part of a bigger picture, how they can do their bit to achieve that vision. Mm-hmm. I think is a really great exercise for any company, really.
And
yeah,
George,
well, going back to the original question, so how did we begin our journey? So we were aware of a growing awareness both internally and externally in our marketplace, and we sat down as a board and we discussed it, and we talked about what we thought were some of the processes or some of the things that we did that we could do in a more environmentally friendly way. And then we went, well, actually, do you know what? Hand on heart, I'm not an environmental expert, and actually neither are you. So we need good advice. We need an organization that can look at a 150-year-old business and look at all the things that it does and identify, one, which are the bits that are really causing potential damage, and two, most importantly, what can we do about those areas to reduce carbon emissions. And we are now working with the Planet Mark, and what they did for us in year one, which was an incredibly painful process, Emily. I'm not going to lie, but
I know exactly what you mean. I've been on the other side myself.
we measured our carbon footprint for the first time, and we didn't.
When was that, George? Sorry, when was year one?
So year one, Emily, was 2019.
That's right.
Year ending 2019. But we didn't just measure the bits that were easy to measure. We decided that we, with this external support, should measure every nut and bolt, every process. The support that we got, we were able to measure our carbon footprint in its entirety, which gave us a starting point. And then once we'd done that, we were then able to hold Kickstarter workshops and engagement forums across our business, involving all the departments of our business and at every level. So we're now in year 3. The great news is that data collection becomes easier. I'm absolutely thrilled to say that we were able to reduce our carbon emissions by 15% in that second year, which is a really significant change for us. And some of that is due to the pandemic and what happened, but some of that is due to the processes that we had put in place. We are still very early in our journey. I don't want anyone to think that we've got it nailed here. We haven't. There is so much more we can do, and we are striving to achieve more and more, and that will only develop over the coming years.
And Emily, do you think the positive environmental impact of the last year is likely to carry on?
But it's been an interesting year as well. We've seen so many new habits, that hopefully some of which will remain with us, mainly, about travel, and when you travel for work, when do you need to go to face-to-face meetings as opposed to doing what we're doing now. So we're quite confident that some of those behaviors will stick.
If you were starting your sustainability journey again, what's the one piece of information you wish you'd known to begin with?
I would say that you need to know that this will take time, and it will take time away from the commercials, the pure commercial side of your business, and that if you don't give it that time, it'll take you a lot longer, and you may not get the best results. So I think you need to make sure that everybody has the bandwidth to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
A realistic idea.
Yeah, I guess I think the quality of the information that the public and that we as business people are now getting is of a really good quality, and we're getting reports into things now that even only a few years ago we wouldn't have been aware of. And I guess if there was something that I really wish we'd had maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been more information about what was going on, because we needed collectively as the human race, we needed to take action on this. We desperately need to take action on this now. We desperately needed to take action on this quite a few years ago. And I guess you could say that we have, we've slightly faltered at the start, because it would have been fantastic if public awareness and commercial awareness was around sooner than it actually was.
And what piece of advice would you give, Amelie, to someone that's just starting out on this journey?
So I think try and understand, kind of paint the picture, trying to understand what's going on as the starting point. So try and map out all of the activities, your operations, what's happening where. Because when you do that, you'll soon start to be able to spot where your big kind of impact, where things are happening. So where your environmental impact needs attention. So map out your starting point. Really paint that picture, trying to understand what's going on. And that might involve asking a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. You might want to figure stuff out, ask, and I would say don't hold back, ask suppliers questions, try and find out as much as you can. So really try and paint that picture, understand what's going on. I think if I can add just another couple of things, may I, Alex?
Yeah, of course you can.
I would say, so it's easy, this feeling of, a slight daunt, like it could be really overwhelming at times when you start to dig into sustainability and it just gets bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to remember to break it down in bite-sized chunks, realize, accept that you're on a journey. Some things will not happen overnight. They will take time. Some things, are dependent on external, context and so on. But importantly as well, stop and celebrate the small successes along the way with your staff. Really, make that a thing, because that just gives the energy back. It kind of you enter a bit of a positive feedback loop then if you really stop and celebrate the successes as well, and treat this as it's part of what we do. It's not meant to be some add-on. This is, if it requires people to focus on this, on if it's through green teams, champions, give them that hour a month to just do that, do this, and don't let it be like a thing that they are expected to do outside of work kind of thing. It needs to be integrated and part of what you.
You're right. Educating and allowing people to make those changes is really important. me personally, I see sustainability training should be as fundamental as your first aid or your manual handling. Like everyone should have an understanding of why we need to be sustainable, because this isn't a case of it's a nice to have. If we don't do it, we won't have the planet as we see it now for generations to come. It's not going to be the same. There is no way we can carry on without making that change. And we are all responsible for that change. And understanding that we are all responsible should be part of that core education for every person, whether that be in school or in business. And it should be mandatory.
Alex, it should be, you're right, and that should be part of the induction process from day one.
Exactly. That's a brilliant place to put it, make it integral part of the onboarding process.
And do you think the journey that you've had within your businesses and your careers into sustainability and your increased awareness and education has had an impact in your personal life and how you might think about sustainability at home?
It's Alex, look, it certainly has, absolutely, hands down, and that's been driven by my awareness, which has grown and grown as we've developed along the journey. I probably, in terms of reviewing our carbon footprint, one of the biggest carbon emission creators in any business is consumption, electricity usage, and that's the same for us. And I suppose, so what have I done personally about that? Well, I got a smart meter.
Good.
I made sure that I went to a supplier that gave me a smart meter, and then I turned everything off in my house and then turned them on one by one and went back and checked to see what.
It's scary, isn't it? Isn't it scary?
It is really scary. It's really scary, and it's the craziest thing. Sometimes you just don't realise. I think the towel rail in my house is probably one of the worst energy consuming things that I've got, and I'd never have known that, but I do know that now. And the towel rail is seldom on
anymore. You can become a bit obsessive with a smart meter. Somebody turn something off. It's going over the limit.
Well, sometimes you see the needle spike and you think, well, who's just turned that on? And then you go around the house and you find out that what's just been turned on and how much power it uses. But I suppose it's, in answer to your question, it's an awareness of consumption of power like that I think I've realized is probably the number one consideration in our business, but also for me personally at home.
For me, I think it will be my, the ability of, any one of us to use, to vote with our wallets, where we put our money. And this for me materializes in just doing the weekly shop. It slows me down considerably because I stand there and I read every label and wonder what fish could I possibly choose. And so I try to, there are definitely ways in which, there are apps and things that can help you make those, more sustainable choices. So I think for me, just that awareness of, I'm just not going to buy any, old crap. I'm really looking into what it is where I spend my money.
I think, I have, I've got a garden full of plant refugees, which a lot of trees I'm sure George is probably the same and has taken home things that he just couldn't bear to say goodbye to. But yeah, I'm quite fortunate that I live about 4 miles away from my work. So between running and walking and cycling, I very rarely have to use my car, which I'm eternally grateful for. My children are now just about old enough to not need picking up from school and things. So that's
fantastic.
That's good. Yeah. And and also
all weather, so Merlin, or just
sometimes I am good. There is a picture of me cycling in the snow somewhere, but
okay.
I can do all weather. Yeah.
So, one final question for you. If you had to give one piece of advice to someone who is starting or already on this journey, what would that piece of advice be?
Mine's nice and simple. So why don't I start? I would say, look, if you're really serious about it, which I know people will be, sometimes I think it is best to start with some help from outside. You can kind of internalize things, and you can try and find your own way, but realistically, there will be a difference. There'll be differences of opinion within your organization, and we work in the horticultural industry. That doesn't make us environmental experts, and there will be things out there that are available to you that you are not aware of, and unless you involve a third party in that process, you're going to struggle to find that information. So my advice to somebody starting out on their journey now is to find the right partner for you. And that won't always, that's not always going to be the same people, because different organizations work in different ways. But we canvassed a lot of opinion, and we spoke to a lot of people before we made our choice. And that's the piece of advice that I would say.
I absolutely endorse what George said. I was going to say, find a friend. Yeah, you can go down rabbit holes very quickly, I think, and take your eye completely off the ball. And I think that's probably something that, I don't think we did it completely, but I on our journey, we focused on, initially, we had this enormous Excel spreadsheet of all the different areas of the business and all the different things that we wanted to address, and it was kind of like the micro view. And we just, there came a point where, yes, we took quite a lot of things off the list, but actually we kind of went, hold on, we've got an awful lot of things to do that we're doing okay, probably maybe not very well, but what are the important things? What are the fundamental things that are going to make the biggest possible change for you? And you need to concentrate on those. So, it's going to be power, it's going to be transport, it's going to be the big guns, not necessarily getting lost down the, can I recycle this crisp packet? Yes, you can tick that one off probably pretty quickly, but actually, meanwhile, someone's driving 50 miles with one load and someone else wanted a load to go that way. What logistics have you got in place to counteract that? So I think yes, find a friend, but also prioritize the important stuff.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, I totally echo what both George and Merlin was saying. Find your friend. We could be one such friend, but there are loads of people. There are good organizations out there, but that's what we love to do. And then, like Merlin was saying, prioritize your actions. Indeed, there's. But then I would add, the one thing would be to, if you're not the CEO or the owner of the company, if you can, if you want the leadership to get on board, try and put down in print, what are the main drivers for your company to embark seriously on the sustainability journey. A little paragraph about some of the external drivers we know, but think carefully about what your internal drivers are. What is in it for your company? Why you should really take this on, and then take that to your leadership and get their buy-in. And just like Merlin and George, having that level of leadership, that's how you make things happen as well. But sometimes it might require a little, support from, somebody really passionate in the business who could drop something, place it on the nose of the owner, CEO, who would go, yes, of course, that's exactly, we just haven't made it explicit before. This is it. This is where we want to get to. This is what we want to be part of. How could you possibly say no to that? And then you have, a really good foundation for kicking off your sustainability journey.
I don't know the answer to this question, but just tell me, is it worth it?
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to ask yourself some really serious questions at the start of this journey. And I know I have 3 children. They are 15, 14, and 6 years old. And every day you have to ask yourself, well, what condition are we going to leave this planet in for the next generation? And actually, not just that, what about my grandchildren? What about their children? What is the world going to look like then? And I think once you've faced that question and thought about the possible outcomes, absolutely, it's worth it.
It's a yes from me as well. Yeah.
I mean, I'd be worried if any of you said no,
Yeah.
but I had to ask the question.
I mean, I don't really feel like I need to add too much more to that, but sometimes it is difficult. It is difficult to know, like I was saying previously, about the small stuff and the big stuff, and then you can get into that sort of spin cycle of not knowing what to do for the best sometimes. But I think it is the case that anything is better than nothing. If you don't have all the answers, you will make your own, and your hopefully your heart will lead you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, for me, I think, of course, yes is the answer. I think, so my daughter is 7, my boy is 3, but, they grow up, and at one point they're my daughter is already trying to, she understands a little bit of what I try to do, but there'll come a time when they go, okay, so Mom, what did you do about, all of this? What did you try to change for the better? And when that day comes and you get that question, I for one want to be able to have a good, answer and say, well, this is what we tried to do and what we did. So thinking about their future and their children's future and so on, absolutely is a motivator. I think also just from personal, like just me as an individual, I find meaning in doing this. I think it contributes to anyone going to work, just to know that you're part of something bigger, a bigger ambition that the company might have set out. That feeling part of that something bigger, it does bring great value, I think, in many instances. So meaningful, contributing to a meaningful life, really.
Thank you very much to Merlin, Emily and George. This has been Hort Talk, episode 4 on sustainability. Thank you all for listening wherever you are. Stay safe and take care.